without further ado, this is Walt Wager. Walt, I'm bringing you up.
Hey, Walt.
Hello. Well, Dane called me, I think it was Monday, and said, can you do a demonstration Wednesday? And I said, you mean
Yep.
This Wednesday?
Yeah.
this week? So what I'm going to do tonight, yes.
You may have to reopen your sound in a minute, because I'm going to mute everybody because I'm getting the background sounds.
Okay.
And now click it back up and you'll be on.
Okay, I'm up, I think, right? You can
All
hear
right.
me?
You got
Okay,
you.
good
Thank
enough?
you.
All right. So what I'm going to demonstrate is how to make one of these. Let's see if I can get it on the close-up camera here in the back. By the way, I want to mention that Tom Kinney has volunteered his shop and to do the Zoom meeting and all this in very, very short notice, and he deserves a round of applause. I mean, he really did carve his way to do this. And
Absolutely, I really appreciate that.
So this is what I'm going to try to make. It's a finial, and I have a picture on the if we can share screen. Okay, share. And I use it on the top of hollow forms of all different kinds. And I just make them. I don't make them for any particular thing necessarily, but I have a supply of these things. We can go back to the other thing of these finials, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate tonight. Now, I can't make one of these completely in an hour, but I'm going to show you the steps, and we'll get as far as we can. But I've got stages all along the way. If one should blow up, I can just move to one of the stages. This is another thing this technique can be used for, like little Christmas ornaments, little hollow forms. The shape of the form that we're using tonight will be the finial form, but it doesn't have to be a concern. Be round or oblong or egg. So I'm going to start out. Typically, I start with a blank that's about 6 inches long. This is a baseball cutoff blank. The wood could be maple, could be ash, could be beech. There isn't any kind of wood I found you can't do this with, except maybe pine. But I don't know what this is. I think it's soft maple. So the first thing I'm going to do is get a basic shape on the blank, and I'm going to use this shape. And it's turned basically with the, since we have to hollow it, we're going to do it this direction. And so I'm going to rough out a shape on the blank that we can start with. If you have any questions, just holler out and I'll stop and answer them. It'll
Remind
be a lot easier if I stop
so you have to push the space bar or unmute yourself to ask a question or make a comment.
All right. So I'm using a spindle gouge, 10mm spindle gouge. That tool rest might be a little high here. Okay, and then we're just going to face off this end. Oh, geez, we've got that. All right. Use a round scraper, negative weight scraper, just to get rid of any tool marks on the bottom here. So now what I have to do, I have a little tear out there. I don't think it'll create a problem, but we'll see. I'm going to drill a hole down through the center to help with the hollowing. And I start with a 3/8 inch twist drill. Getting ahead of myself here. What I need to do is I need to measure on the drill how far down I want to go, because when I get down to the bottom, I want it to be at the tip of the spiral. So it looks to me like it's gonna be right about here. I'll just take a piece of tape. Put it around the drill. Go down to the whatever it says. I'm going to take a Fosner bit. This is a 7/8 inch Fosner bit. I'm going to come down to where the, you can see this in the overhead, excuse me. You see this in the overhead? Is that the overhead?
There we go.
So I want to come down, I want to leave myself some wall thickness on either side of that. And that would be right about there. So that will also help with hollowing. Does anybody have any questions about why you use this? All right, we'll just go. for the spiral.
I do have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Why did you use the twist bit first instead of instead of just drilling it with the froster bit?
Because we're going straight into end grain. That's a good question, and it's not. I don't know that everybody else does it this way, but if you drill with this bit first, then you're not fighting the end of the Fosner bit when it goes through. It goes through a lot cleaner.
Bingo.
You can do it by using a smaller Fosner bit too, but this way works, I think, best.
Yep.
That makes sense?
Okay, yeah, thanks.
It's the same as if with a spindle gouge or bowl gouge going into the center, that center rotation is hardly moving, and you got more mass on the Forstner bit with that tip and point there, trying to fight through that end grain as opposed to the wings out there. So if you take out that center with a twist drill, that
Correct. Yeah.
that force and
The other
friction
thing
is
that
eliminated.
you all might know this, but if you keep your Fosner bit sharp using a paddle and come up along the wing like this,
Nice. Yep.
and not let it get dull, they're much nicer tools to work with. Once they get dull, they're very hard to sharpen. But if you keep them sharp, they're wonderful.
Yeah, just a few strokes.
And then I usually go along the outer edge like this, just to shine it up a little bit. You're really not sharpening much, but just to keep it clean and polished. All right, so now we're going to make some marks on here so we can get the cut lines for the binds. And what I'm going to do tonight, we're going to do 4 binds. It doesn't. Let me see if I can pull one here. This is an 8 bind, 8 binds, 8 cuts along the edge. These are actually easier to do than the 4 bind cuts like this. And the reason is that you've got more wood on there to support everything. When you get down the 4 binds like this, it can get more delicate in terms of the wood holding it all together. So if we set this up so that I'm going to just use the let's see if I can show this with handle. Just going to have the handle straight up and make a horizontal line on here. You'll see it in a minute when I turn it. The other side, straight up. Gives me another line. I put it so it's sideways like this. I get my 3rd line. And then sideways like this, I get my 4th line.
Are they equally spaced around the cylinder there?
Hopefully. They're close. They're close enough. Now, if you have an indexing system on your lathe that you use, or if you have an indexing disc that you put behind the chuck, that you can be more accurate. You can actually do it off the lathe too, with by using a little square or straight edge. Just see where you are. Use a not a compass, but the divider. But this is going to be close enough. Now that's the number of binds. There are 4, and then we're going to make some lines so we can have our spiral. And I usually start right in at the largest diameter. Just make a line there, then make a line below that about a 1/2 inch, and then a line below that, and then a line up the other way. Another one. these are roughly equally spaced. They're not exactly equally spaced, but good enough. So there are 6 lines. Then I'm going to connect. I'm going to go over up to and over 1 to connect these. And then the last one will just come up like this. I'll do the next one. Now, the master of this technique is Stuart Mortimer. I've watched Stuart at least a half a dozen times.
Yep, he's got some videos on how to do exactly this out there on YouTube.
What's his name?
Yes.
Stuart Mortimer. He's also got some great books out. He's a British turner.
Stuart Mortimer is a British turner. He's been knighted. So it's Sir Stuart Mortimer now, I guess. Anyhow, that's going to give me a rough idea of my where my cut lines are going to be. What I'm using to do the cutting is a mini grinder made by King Arthur's Tools. It's called a Merlin 2, and a carbide disc that has cutting edges on both sides. The least aggressive carbide disc that they make. And on the back of that, I've made a Corian spacer. So it sits behind the disc. Let's see if I can show that. It sits behind the disc. And so when I make the cut, it's only going to go that deep. And what's important about that is that it's going to give me an even depth of cut all the way through. The most important part, I think, of making these things work is when you hollow it, you want the sides of the walls of the form to be an even thickness. If they're uneven, it'll break at the weakest point. So I'm going to make those cuts now, and it creates a lot of dust. So Tom's going to ask when I'm done making the cuts, okay? Turn it off. For now. Now we're ready to hollow it. going to just start with a spindle gouge. This out of my way.
Hey, Walt, stupid question perhaps, but you left all that extra meat in there so you have stability before making the cuts versus hollowing and then making the cuts, correct?
Say it again.
Okay, you left all that extra meat. You drilled the hole, left all that extra meat on the inside instead of hollowing it first and then cutting your grooves. So you had stability on the project, correct?
Well, yeah, down here on this side, because we're going to take this off later. But on the when I hollowed it, when I put the cut in here, there is plenty of extra wood in there. Yes, so the cuts only go down so deep. And the reason I made the cuts first is that when I hollow it, when I hit the bottom of that cut, the sawdust is going to start to come out, and I know to stop. So
Okay,
I know that
cool.
the sides will be even. The
Yep.
thickness
All right,
will be.
yeah, that makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So I'm just going to go in here and start taking out some wood. Whatever hollowing tools you use for small hollow forms will work on this. So sometimes I have a small Sorby hollowing tool that allows me to get along the edge here. Okay, I don't know if you saw it, but I saw the sawdust start coming out, flying out of the holes. So I've reached the point of the thickness I want now, right up at the top here. And then I work down toward the bottom. I don't want to get to the bottom first, because if I make that thin and I try to hog out wood up here, it'll break. I know that from experience. Now I saw sawdust come out from down here, so I'm at the proper thickness from here to here. I have a little extra in here, because you'll see this all the way around when it's cut correctly, and they'll all be evenly thick.
Hey, Walt, you know
Yes.
when that wood is squealing, you know what it's saying?
What's it saying?
It's saying, please stop hurting me.
It's saying, yeah, I'm vibrating all over the place. You're making me.
I can't claim that. I heard Richard Raffin
It's
say
a tool
that.
that's making.
So what's the thinking behind doing
Tool that's
doing the
making all the
cuts?
noise.
What's the thinking behind doing the cuts first and then the hollowing?
Excuse me.
Because the depth, you know, you've got a consistent thickness that you're working to through the cuts, as opposed to hollowing and then trying to cut.
Yeah,
I see.
if
Okay,
you're really
okay.
good at hollowing with even thickness, you can do it the other way.
All right. I guess that's where I was coming from. Okay, thanks.
I break fewer this way.
Okay, it makes good sense.
Members, if you're just joining us, we're visiting with Walt, who's doing a demonstration on a spiral finial for us tonight.
And you do have to stop and check periodically. I mean, you don't have to, but sure helps. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the way it is up here. I'm not happy down here yet because I have to get to the bottom of these spirals up here. And it's a little deceiving with the idea that the sawdust coming out will tell you everything, because the sawdust, once you cut a hole in it, the sawdust is going to come out anyhow. So you have to kind of go back and check and make sure you're not just working in one spot, working one finger. So I know what I have to go do. And we still have that 3/8 inch hole in the bottom. And it's a good idea to know where that stops. It stops right here. So the end of our piece is going to be about there. I have a little bit more to go down here. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is turn it around, because I'm done with the hollowing part of it, and now I have to finish with the binds. And I know that it's going to come down to at least that far. So I'm going to take my parting tool and cut it off, make a tenon, and glue it in the other direction. Any questions about that?
You said glue it.
Glue it. Yeah. Glue it. And I'll just, what's that old saying? Measure twice and cut once?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Oh, that's just type from the media.
Yeah, right.
I like
Cut
that
it twice and
calibrated.
it's still too short.
Pardon?
Cut it twice and it's still too short.
Yeah, right.
Measure twice, cut once, curse, order more materials, start next week.
Measure once, cut twice, then force it to fit.
Right, a little trick is, though, we know that the hole in here is the size of the Foster bit. So what we can do is take and put the Foster bit back in. And we'll use that to size
Remember,
our, excuse me?
because we started the demonstration a little bit early tonight, we'll continue with our regular club business, which means we'll be doing the gallery, et cetera, right following this. So stick with us.
So I'm going to make a mortise down here that will go into the bottom of the finial. So it'll be, that's the orientation. Can you see the top view? Got it?
Yep.
I want it to fit a little better than that. One silly little millimeter. just like that. Now, if you're compulsive and you kept track of things, you can line the grain up. I paint a lot of mine, so I don't pay a lot of attention to that. But we'll put some super glue on there. Give it a second to set up. Now I could have and probably should have taken more of this waste off the top here. I will use the tailstock to help support it right while I do that. Well, as I said, I got backups here. Well, let's see what we can do with this. I should have pulled this up straight to make sure that I got it better, more square than it is. It's a little off round and not square. Let's see where we can go with it. Yeah, probably it. Wow. All right, now we'll go to the backup piece. If I had taken that down, you could make a different kind of finial if you wanted. But if I had taken that down before I cut it off, I probably wouldn't have done that. I would have been a little bit more conscious of the thickness up or where the hole stopped, and I lost track of that. So that's my mistake.
Hey, that can be fixed.
And I'm sorry about that. Pardon? That can be fixed.
That can be fixed.
Oh, it could be used. You can do all kinds of things with it. You can cut off and make a double spiral, like antler type thing. It's not throwaway, but it's not what I came to do tonight. So we'll just back up one step. If that's okay.
Sure.
All right, let's see here. I also have a video on my website at waltwager.com. It's in the video list of doing this. So if there's something that somebody missed earlier on, you can always go there and see that. But we're back to the point where I need to cut it off and turn it around. Before I do that, I'll take a little more waste off of this side. I may also, I think I have enough room up here. So let's see.
Walt, could it be that you measured the small holes distance, and you maybe to help you would have measured the larger hole distance?
Well, the answer is yes, but in terms of that's where it cut off at the larger hole, basically, because the smaller hole goes down. And one of the things that some people use when they're doing this is a set of tapered drills. There's a drill actually called the tapered drill that will drill a hole that's, progressively more narrow. So so you don't run into that. I'm going to just double check on this one, make sure I don't do the same thing, or attempt not to do the same thing. So this one, the bottom of it is right here, bottom of the hole, and I'm going to cut it off down here and turn it around. You can see there's a lot, I took off a lot more waste on this one than I did on the other one. And you can use this to steady it too. If it's, I'm not cranking this in to hold it as much as I am just to let it sit there. It doesn't have any real pressure on it, but it'll keep it from vibrating. It's a matter of repetition. If you're going to do these, if you're going to attempt to do them, you're going to learn as you go along that or what happens or what can happen. just about there. Should do it. And that's just that one more cut and it's loose, but I'm gonna go with it anyhow. I'm gonna just use the,
Put a little tissue and then the super glue and then would that work?
what's that?
Use a little tissue and then do your super glue to put it on?
You could.
Now, Walt, are you going to take off more of the ring? I mean, the outside of the ring itself before you turn it?
Out here? Out on this
No,
side?
on the other end. There. No, on the other side. By the headstock.
Oh, by the headstock. Yeah, I mean, this becomes the base of the, let's see if I can pull one out here to show you. When you're done with it, you are going to shape the tenon down to fit on whatever it is that you use overhead.
Okay.
Is this an overhead?
Yes.
We can see it there.
Okay, I got it.
You'll shape it later for the vessel.
Yeah, you're going to shape it when you get the vessel that you're going to put it on so that it fits on the top. So this is just extra waste wood down
Okay.
here at this point, right a bit, so that you can turn it. And it's nice to have it fit so snug that it runs really nice and true. I'm going to make one more cut on this one. There's not a lot of difference between snug and not fitting. All right. So now I can see that if it's turning nice and square, nice and straight, then I'm going to be good when I glue it. The other thing that I will do for now is I'm going to dish this out a little bit because once it's glued together, I can't get inside the piece. And I want to come around on the bottom of the piece as if it were hollowed as a rounded vessel. So that looks pretty good. Again, if you can, well, there's no sense trying to line up the grain. It's a different piece of wood. It's not the same base as it was. Oh, yes, it is. Let's see. What am I saying? That's running pretty well, pretty smooth. We'll give that a second. Set. Any other questions so far?
Oh, we're just enthralled. That's all.
Pardon?
Everyone's enthralled.
I did hear it. All right. Now see if we can get this off without splitting it. Well, gun shy now, so we're gonna have to back off this a little bit.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's one of those things where you can make a dozen and nothing happens, and then you can make the next dozen and you can't make the next dozen. All right. See if I can get this out of here. That was the glue. We find it. You see it? Yep. Where is it? Is it right?
Nope. There's an accelerator in that cabinet right behind you.
All right. We'll try re-gluing. Accelerator here.
Yep. Left side.
Oh, I see it. All right. Try this again. What else could happen, right?
Now you've got the
Well,
worst of it
lots.
out
You
of
could-
the way.
Pardon?
You could shatter the piece.
I could. We're
Hey,
not
hey,
done. We're
I
not
don't,
even
I
gonna
don't think
be-
he really.
Doing this because I had
We don't want to talk like that. We don't even want to think about that.
Be careful.
Right.
Murphy can be a bastard, so
Pardon?
be careful. Murphy can be a bastard.
Yeah. You got plenty of time, Walt. You don't have to feel rushed.
You're right.
And is he charging by the hour?
Well, we didn't discuss that, so.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna go with this for now, and I'll do a little cleanup later. So what I'm gonna do now is open up these binds, and to do that, I'm going to take this. Let me find where I put the. I'm gonna take the spacer off the cutter.
Sandwich number 2. Yeah, it's easier to reach. No? Where you want it?
That's fine.
And I'm going to use the carbide to cut these down to a size that I can work with. I'm done. What I'm going to do is take the point off of this and move this up so that it supports the end of this, so it doesn't move. So I mean, it moves, but of course it's not going to vibrate back and forth. Okay. So I haven't got these all equal yet, but to save a little time, I'm just going to work with this one bind that looks about right. And what I'm trying to do is get it as wide as it is deep. So as thick as it is, as wide as, change the tool over. For the what? Cutter? Yeah, okay. Well, I can take the cutter out. You can actually see it better. We'll do it. Take it out anyhow. The cutter is a round carbide cutter, and it has teeth on both sides. It's about 1/8 of an inch thick. And so when I'm going up along the side here, I'm rasping off the wood on the bind till I get it to the thickness that I want. This is still a little thick. I go a little further, but I've got one here that's
Did you do any measuring
good enough to continue and show you what I do next.
Did you do any measuring to find, to get an even thickness, or are you just eyeballing it?
I mean, on the thickness this way, I'm eyeballing
Yes.
it. Yeah,
Okay,
as I go along,
thank you.
I'm trying to only work on one side, so that the other side stays along the cut line. But as I work on that side, I'm trying to look at the thickness and get it to be an even thickness.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Makes sense. It is a matter of, I suppose you could use a piece of, someone suggested using a piece of tape, like, a 3/16 inch strip of tape, and then staying within that boundary. That might be a good thing to do if you're starting and you don't want to eyeball it. You want more precision. You could do something like that. And
Well, you also look like you're sort of tapering those things as you get near the ends too.
Yeah, you can't, well, on this side, I want it round down to the bottom. And on this side, I want to taper it up in the top. I can't go the full thickness, because as you get up here, it gets thinner. So, yeah, you do have to kind of watch how thick it is.
Thank you.
So the next step, what I do is I change over the machine to use what's called a quick change. And you've seen these in Harbor Freight, I'm sure. They use them in the automobile trade. It's just a disc that snaps into, it has a little screw thread on it, and it snaps into the holder. What do they call them? Roll locks. And I'm going to put this sanding disc on here. This is a classic demo. I don't know why I did do that.
Okay, who asked what else could happen? That's it right there. That's what could happen.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess you have to count that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You never ask that question. Never.
All right, we're going to go on to the next stage because I've got one. All right, here we go.
It's all good, Walt. It's all good.
It's only wood. It grows on trees, right?
Right.
So, let's can't get too excited about it.
I feel bad, Walt, because I told you you've done so many of these things. No problem.
Yeah, I have.
Hey, Walt,
well, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen when you got 100 eyeballs on you.
Of course.
Could you do
Ain't that
something
right,
like?
Matt?
Yeah, Ab, right. Could you do something like would it be more stable if you used like pin jaws on the chuck and just put it into the chuck that way?
Pin jaws?
Yeah, instead of, making a tenon and using that, like just putting it on top of pin jaws, you know what I mean? Smaller jaws.
Oh, I suppose you could. I think the advantage of doing it this way is you have extra wood to work with later on when you're going to go mate it up to an urn or something.
Like, I got you. Okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
So I have not finished with the bottom of this piece yet. See, I'd have to cut it down, and I sprayed it with black paint just to see black lacquer just to see where I still had to work on it a little bit more. Where the roughness is.
You know what? I think his way of gluing it is actually gluing it on that and on a tenon is actually stronger than a pin jaws, because if you take a set of jaws and clamp down on something.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Not only could move, but you could crack that hollow form.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So what I was doing when the disaster happened, I think what happened is I hit the edge of the disc and it tore and caught on the wood. But what I was doing is rounding off the edges with the sandpaper. And so if I come in here like this, and okay, so I take those sanding discs and round off the edges of the binds with the sandpaper. It's less aggressive than that carbide disc, and it gives you a better finish. And then I take strips of sandpaper. This is 120 grit, and the type of paper I use I get from Kling Sports called J-Flex. It has a cotton backing, and it's very flexible. And then you can come back and forth on the binds like this. And again, if you're working, the other part of it is this is nice here because you've got something to hold it when you're working, either on or off the lathe. And you put that up there and it keeps it from flexing too much. And you can start rounding off the edges of the binds with the sandpaper. And you do that, as I said, this was 120, and you go all the way down to 300, 400, 600, however fine you want to do it. But the object is to make these round. The other part of it is one of the more difficult parts. Sanding sticks. I make these sanding sticks just by gluing some sandpaper to a popsicle stick or a craft stick, whatever they call it. And then you can come in here with that, and I'll generally sit and watch a television show while I'm doing this, just finishing off the inside and the bumps and the lumps that are on the inside that are left after you're done rounding them off. And then you can make these round sanding sticks with the skewers or little dowels. And get into the top and continue the curve all the way up to the top of the point. Like that. Getting in here and getting down in and getting it smooth.
Good idea.
So it's not a quick process. I mean, it takes me 4 to 6 hours to finish one of these to the point where I feel like it's getting ready for painting. And then if I do paint it, and I still want to work on it, I can see where I need to do a little bit more work, and I can come in there with the stick or the dowel and take care of that, and then repaint it. If I'm just using raw wood, if I'm using a piece of pretty wood like African blackwood or something like that, of course I'm not going to paint it. And African blackwood and the harder woods actually work better than the softer woods in terms of being stiff and holding up the holding up through this whole process. This other one that I did, what did I do with it? This is just a piece of cherry that's been painted. This is some sort of, this is much harder wood. I don't know exactly what it is, but I've got a lot of work to do on that. So it's not a quick process, but it's certainly nothing that you can't do. If you don't have the carbide cutter, what you can do is, you heard of Surform tools? The Surform?
Like a planer.
Like a planer. Yeah, if you make a saw cut along the bind lines with a back saw, and then take a Surform tool, you can do basically the same thing without having the power tools. But that's how I do it. Are there any other questions? And then I don't cut it off and make it. I don't cut it off and put it in final form until I have the piece that I'm going to put it on, so that I know how it's going to fit. I do kind of make the tenons a standard 3/8 of an inch hole, or a 1/2 inch, depending on the size of the piece. So you can make these things all different sizes, and I've made Christmas ornaments out of them. I've made the rounded ones like I showed you before, like this. And you don't have to cut the binds perfectly round. You could leave something like this with just a cut along the surface and put that on something. See if I can get it oriented so you can see it.
Yep, there you go.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I like it, Walt.
Great.
So,
I wondered how you did that.
did what? That's how you do. Well, I'm sorry for two blow-ups in one demonstration.
Well, you don't have the record. Walt, you do not have the record.
I don't.
You're not even in a running right now.
Okay. Well, are there any other questions? As I said, there is a video that's actually complete. It doesn't blow up. It's on waltwager.com.
Yeah, it's a really good video.
A bunch of
Really
videos
good.
on there. But there's one for the rounded one that has terrible music, somebody said, and the Finial, which doesn't have any music at all.
Yep, and your fish platter.
So you can please some of the people some of the time, all the people no, you can please all the people some of the time, some of the people all the time, but not all the
Actually,
people
I
all
like the
time, right?
music.
That's right.
I like
Oh,
the
you did.
demonstration.
It's
I
exciting.
really enjoyed it. Learning
job, Walt.
techniques.
And to your friend for allowing you to come over on short notice, my hat's off to him. I really do appreciate it.
Hey, come on up, Tom. Take a bow. Tom
That's
watches
right.
you every
He
single week.
deserves
So
an applause and a raise too.
Yeah, right.
we gotta get in the picture.
Got
Get
it,
the
Ken.
picture.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank
I
y'all so.
appreciate it too. I
Good
appreciate
Hey,
it too.
Tom, I'll
Thank
get
you,
you in
bud.
the payroll.
Yeah. This, if you saw Tom's shop, this is the envy of anybody's shop. I want to tell you, he's got everything and he's got it all in the right places. And
So when
It's
we
in
gonna
the
get
right
Tom on
places.
that?
How's that
When
happen?
are we gonna get
I
Tom
think-
on that side of the lathe?
my shop would scare you.
Hey, Tom, when you gonna do a demo?
I'm busy that day.
Nice try, Dane. Nice try.
Well, you know, I had to try.
Yeah. Dane doesn't let me get away, that's for sure. Great
Action.
demo, Walt. Very good demo, interesting, a lot of technique, a lot of ideas, a whole lot of y'all scratching your head saying, you know what? And that's what we're looking for.